It's great to be here with you today, and it's always a privilege. I was thinking during the introduction that it was 1990 when I first started speaking for the Alabama Department of Rehabilitation Services, or any association that deals with them. And I believe it was Steve Autry got me to speak at something. So it's been 21 years. Betsy Prince, can you imagine that? I was just a youngster. I think I was all of maybe 11 when he first had me speak. Anyway, so after 27 years of doing this, I've been around this group and groups like this for 21 of 27 years that I've been a speaker. I count this as a privilege. Susan, I appreciate you asking me to speak. And this is one group that I never take for granted, is something that, just halfway prepared, get up there, you've done it for so long, you can do it. Never do I do this with a group like this, and the main reason is because I feel a heart connection, and I guess I can really say this, a heart connection with the people that live, work, dream, play in this area. I do not know what it's like to have a child or an adult child with disabilities, but I know that 4 years ago when I started being the full-time caretaker for my mother, I understand some of the things that go into the caretaking, and we did that with my father 11 years ago. As many of y'all are dealing with, I think it's a sign of our times as people are living to ripe ages. Well, that's a nice way to say we're getting old. Now, I've heard several people mention the storm. It was a big one at my house. Of course, I love storms, so I ran out on my patio just to kind of experience the whirlwind. Literally. In fact, it was so impressive that I almost wore a blue and white checkered gingham dress so I could try and be Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, because my house was spinning, or maybe it was my head, I'm not sure. But I did not find brains, heart, or courage when I went to visit the wizard. And so you just have regular old Sharleen here today with y'all. Are y'all doing good this morning? Yeah. Good. See, it doesn't matter where you go or what you do, whether it's at home or it's afar, whether it's with the commission board, it's where you work, your family. There's one thing you always have to deal with, and what's that? Other people. Wow. I mean, some people can be difficult, but they're never impossible. In the introduction, she mentioned that the majority of my work had been done in the area of organizational development. When I started out, I was graduated from Auburn and went up north to attend Temple University and J. Adams Bible College. And while I was there, it was kind of interesting because I thought I was going to go into being a full-time counselor. And up there, I did have a full-time job. I was counseling sexually abused teenage girls. And so the psychology degree, even the mass communications degree, was all about trying to understand people. Well, pretty soon after I was there, 2 or 3 years, I realized that was not the field for me, because I took everything for heart and I could not get away from it even at night. And that's my weakness. But I moved back to Montgomery at that point, and I went into, looked up actually with my first tenure with Auburn University at Montgomery. I was there for 6 years, left and came back. And I got into organizational development. You know what I realized? That's nothing more than counseling workplaces. Instead of one-on-one or one-on-family, it was one-on big old organizations. Because as dysfunctional as a family could be, organizations are too. And what it led me to see is that a lot of times it simply comes back to partnerships, collaboration, and how well you interpersonally relate with those around you. So how good are you at that? In 2011, they say the number one skill necessary in America for a work environment, for leadership, and for partnerships, the number one need that we don't have. In particular, this might offend you, but baby boomers and Generation X. We lack interpersonal skills. And we see that continuing to somewhat deteriorate when all I can get some of my friends to do is text. And I'm like, don't text again until I see your face say something to me. Merry-go-round or roller coaster. Susan asked me to speak on team dynamics, tools to equip team members, partnerships in almost any given situation, but in particular with the family dynamics, an individual with special needs, the family dynamics, and then I'm going to say the care representatives, the professional representatives that surround them. And when I started thinking of that, you know, I don't want to go with something just like team dynamics. That's so boring. So let's dream up something. And I started to think, it's kind of like a merry-go-round. But in some cases, is it a roller coaster instead? Now, y'all, I love a good roller coaster. I mean, that's like the first thing I run to. And get on that last little car where you're just flipped up in the air and you're jerked around. Oh, it's fun. But there's one thing about it, you can always get off. And then you get back to stabilization, equilibrium, if you will. Because the thing is, it doesn't matter if you're at the South Alabama State Fair, at the Coliseum, or you're down in Disney World, Disneyland, Six Flags Over Georgia, it doesn't matter. Roller coasters, you never kind of expect where they're going to take you. Even though I stood in line and just went 10 times over and over again. I love the feeling, but I don't want to live there. And I think when I started looking at this, that's where my mind went. See, a merry-go-round tends to be predictable. And any partnership, any dynamics of a team needs some predictability. Now, let me share with you something that Dr. Susan Wheatley said, and she's a behavioral psychologist. And I found this fascinating. I probably heard her 27 years ago, and I've remembered this quote forever. Listen carefully. Chaos, which we all live in sometimes, right? Chaos is simply order without predictability. We call it chaos, but it's order, but because we can't predict it, we call it chaos. Kind of sounds like getting on a roller coaster. But see, a merry-go-round is predictable. It rotates around a central point. In thinking of that, I thought this central point could be the values that you live in. It could be the individual with the special needs. But it rotates around a certain point, which gives us a very smooth ride. Here we go around. It's peaceful. You know, you don't have any hard metal rock music playing on a merry-go-round. There's a state of equilibrium even with the horses or other animals going up and down because they finally come back to a place of rest. There are benches when you don't want to go on the ups and downs. Now, I don't understand why anybody would do that, but on occasion, you'll go back there and take a seat on one of the benches. I can kind of hear the music playing. It's a pleasant ride, and there's a variety of animals. And I'm sure when old Walt Disney started out, he had a bunch of horses on his merry-go-round. The thing is now you have lions and zebras, and I've even seen whales and dolphins. And then let me stop on that for just a second. A roller coaster has 20-something of the same cars. They're all alike. See, in a merry-go-round, you have a diversity, which is what we need in this country that we call a melting pot. As our demographics change, You see, in Alabama alone, by 2020, Hispanic and Asian populations are to rise. We've already seen the tide turn from traditionally white male in workplaces and in professional positions to women and minorities. Diversity is a good thing. I was somewhere yesterday speaking on that we've got IQ, at least some people do. You got an IQ, intelligence quotient, and you've heard of emotional intelligence. So you got an EQ. But I was saying we need to start getting a CQ, cultural competence. Not to be able to tolerate differences or just accept it, but be able to engage in the differences, because it's only by diversity that we are the best that we can be. Now, I taught yesterday for a while on the little Title VII of Civil Rights Act, age discrimination in employment, Americans with disabilities. However, I went into, there are a lot other areas of diversity. When I left my house this morning in Montgomery, I ride down the street, and I think my neighborhood, there is a, what do you call it, like a white elephant? Instead of in the room, it's in the neighborhood. And it's like, I love trees. I grew up with trees. I love them. But my neighbors are chopping them down everywhere I go. Like I came home from a week speaking out of town, and my neighbor cut down 4 trees. You know, it's where you look out your back window and you notice something's different, and then you go, dang. I mean, where did these people grow up in the city? Because I grew up with a bunch of trees. You make your little, especially pine trees, you make a little village out of pine straw. Well, it takes diversity. I kept driving down the street when I noticed all these tree trunks around, and I started seeing all the flags, you know, that hang out from the homes. Now, mine says Auburn. Somebody else will have a duck. Now, I don't know what that family was doing, but they had a duck. Okay? Then you had one, you could tell it's springtime because it's a little sand bucket. And I started thinking, flags should be representative of who we are, the diversity. And it doesn't have to just be underprotected classes. There's personality, temperaments, beliefs, customs that make us as diverse as we could be. And I think that's important when you're looking at a true team. But we don't want, and hopefully you don't relate to any of this, a roller coaster. It's an up and down ride, and it doesn't stop till it's over. It's very unpredictable. It's never stationary. Inconsistent speeds. You know, when here, you start going very, very slowly up a hill, and then suddenly it just lets loose. You get jerked around. Even turns you upside down, and wherever you sit, you're still on the ride. And I don't, you know, as much as I love change, as much as I love the unexpected, it fires me up. I'm one of those, you get deadlines met at the last minute because of the energy it brings. I don't want to live that way permanently. I mean, I'll jump out of an airplane, but at least when I get to the ground, I start living my life again, hopefully.